With Nathapong lying on the floor, Rakani immediately pulled up the shirt the man was wearing and began to touch him. Malia felt strange at first, but then they both undid the man's pants until they were completely exposed. Apparently, Nathapong was still slightly conscious, but didn't move much until a few minutes later when he tried to get up, but wasn't given the chance until the young man lost consciousness. Then, the woman pressed her lips to Nathapong's lips and body, wildly. For some reason at that moment, Malia got carried away and did the same, until finally they both did the horrible thing, inserting a broomstick into Nathapong's back hole, as deep as possible. Hi there, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're delving into another shocking and unsettling real-life story. This time, we're heading to Chumpon, Thailand, where a bizarre and disturbing case unfolded involving two young women and their questionable behavior toward their neighbor's gardener. What really happened, and how did it all escalate? Stick around as we uncover the full story. Let's dive right in. Before we get into today's story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this story with your friends. It's one you won't want to miss. Now, let's jump in. This is the story of Rakani, a beautiful woman born in 1991, the eldest of two siblings. She worked at a packaged coffee company in Chumpon, Thailand. With her brother working out of town in Ranong and her father no longer around, Rakani lived alone with her mother, Apinia, who worked as a nurse at the Chumpon City Hospital. Rakani's lifestyle, however, was a constant source of worry for her mother. Known for her wild side, Rakani loved partying, drinking, and living lavishly. She was also no stranger to trouble, having faced the police multiple times for drug-related incidents. Yet, thanks to posting bail, she always managed to walk away unscathed. Despite her mother's repeated warnings and pleas, Rakani showed no sign of changing her ways. In 2017, at the age of 26, Rakani started dating a co-worker. Things escalated quickly, and the two got married in November of that year. She moved in with her new husband, but their marriage was rocky from the start. Rakani's argumentative nature and refusal to give in during fights made things worse. Her wild nightlife didn't slow down after marriage. Weekend partying, drinking, and coming home at dawn frustrated her husband, who began confiding in her mother, Apinia. Despite her mother's advice and intervention, nothing changed. After just 4 chaotic months of marriage, her husband filed for divorce. To no one's surprise, the breakup didn't seem to affect Rakani emotionally. She moved back to her mother's house, showing no regret or remorse. What upset Apinia even more was that her son-in-law had evidence of Rakani's numerous male friends and her habit of staying out with them at hotels or even bringing them home. Divorce, it seemed, was inevitable. After returning home as a single woman, Rakani embraced her freedom. She had plenty of suitors but refused to settle down. She enjoyed being untethered, hanging out with anyone she wanted, sleeping wherever she pleased, and coming home whenever she felt like it, all without anyone telling her otherwise. Naturally, this caused tension with her mother, and the arguments escalated to the point where Apinia kicked her out. Yet Rakani always found her way back. In early 2018, Rakani struck up a friendship with a guy named Kriti, whom she met at a nightclub. Kriti was known for his carefree attitude and shared Rakani's love for nightlife. Their friendship didn't sit well with Apinia, as the two often stayed up laughing, dancing, and blasting music well past midnight. But Rakani, as always, ignored her mother's disapproval. In February 2018, Kriti decided to pull a scheme. Using Rakani's photo and bio, he created a fake Facebook account, pretending to be her. Through this account, he started connecting with people online, one of whom was a 33-year-old married man named Thanaporn. Captivated by Rakani's profile, Thanaporn began chatting late into the night, completely unaware that the account was controlled by Kriti. Their chats grew increasingly personal, and Thanaporn, blinded by infatuation, even started sending money at Kriti's request. All the while, Thanaporn's wife remained oblivious to what was happening behind the screen. Little did anyone know, this seemingly harmless online interaction was about to unravel into something far more dramatic. In June 2018, Kriti came clean to Rakini and told her everything about his fake Facebook scheme. He explained that Thanaporn, the man he had been chatting with while pretending to be Rakini, was insisting on meeting her in person. Kriti had already asked Thanaporn for money 3 times under the pretense that Rakini's mother was sick. At first, Rakini was hesitant about getting involved, but Kriti convinced her to meet Thanaporn at a cafe and share a sob story about her struggles. Reluctantly, Rakini agreed. On July 4, 2018, the 3 of them, Rakini, Kriti, and Thanaporn, met at a cafe. Thanaporn was thrilled. He had believed all along that the Facebook profile was real, despite never having called or video chatted. Meeting Rakini in person only deepened his feelings for her. Rakini played along, telling fabricated stories about her difficult life and the challenges of caring for her mother, who she claimed was battling diabetes. Thanaporn, moved by her tales, fell even harder for her. 2 weeks later, things took a turn. One evening, while Kriti was asleep in Rakini's room, she noticed a message on his phone. It revealed that he had recently received a $1,200 transfer from Thanaporn, money he hadn't told her about. Furious, Rakini realized Kriti had been profiting off her name and image all along. Not only had he created a fake Facebook account, but he had also been pretending to be her and even gave out her phone number to further his scam. Annoyed that Kriti was using her without sharing the profits, Rakini decided to take matters into her own hands. The next day, Rakini called Thanaporn and confessed everything. She told him the Facebook account was fake and that Kriti had been scamming him from the beginning. Shocked and angry, Thanaporn reported Kriti to the police for fraud. The fallout didn't end there. Thanaporn's wife eventually found out about the entire ordeal, adding another layer of drama to the situation. Kriti was arrested shortly afterward. As the investigation unfolded, the scope of Kriti's schemes became clear. Thanaporn wasn't his only victim. Kriti had used Rakini's photos and profile to scam 7 other men, collectively stealing nearly $12,000. His typical pattern was to block these men after receiving their money, but Thanaporn was different. He had promised to send even more, which made Kriti push harder to exploit him. Meeting Rakini in person had only fueled the con, but ironically, it was Rakini herself who exposed the truth. Perhaps it was because Kriti wasn't sharing the spoils, but in the end, Rakini played a key role in bringing him down. Kriti was sentenced to 4 months in prison, while Rakini faced no charges, as there was no evidence linking her to the fraud. Fast forward to 2020, during the pandemic, Rakini found herself laid off and struggling financially. Her mother, Apenia, became the sole breadwinner, as her job as a nurse at the city hospital ensured a steady income even during tough times. The two continued to have a rocky relationship, frequently fighting because Rakini often demanded money to go out drinking. As the pandemic eased, things began to improve. In March 2021, Rakini returned to her old job at the coffee company. Around the same time, her cousin Malia, a 31-year-old widow, came to stay with them while looking for work. Malia had been unemployed for nearly 2 years due to the pandemic, and Rakini helped her apply for a position at the coffee company. By May 2021, Malia had joined the team and started working alongside Rakini, giving the family a small sense of stability as they tried to move forward. Rakini seemed genuinely happy to have Malia around. They shared a lot in common. They were both widows, loved to party, enjoyed dressing up, and didn't mind a drink or two. The key difference was that Malia was more polite, especially toward her aunt. Perhaps it was because she lived under her roof, but Malia also encouraged Rakini to show more respect to her mother. "Go ahead and have fun outside," she'd say, "but at least be kind to the people who are helping you at home." It was advice that, on the surface, seemed to work for a while. On November 10, 2021, Rakini invited Malia out for drinks at a bar with some friends. Most of the people there were strangers to Malia, but she decided to tag along. They had promised to head home before midnight, but as the night wore on, things got a little out of control. The bar filled up, the music got louder, and the group spent the night dancing, laughing, and losing track of time. By the time Malia and Rakini realized how late it was already 3 a.m. Drunk and exhausted, they ordered a ride home using an app, but in their confusion, they input the wrong address. The driver dropped them off at a spot that was about 400 meters away from their actual house. Too disoriented to figure it out, they decided to walk the rest of the way in the dark, still groggy and unsure of their surroundings. After walking for what felt like ages without finding their house, they spotted a large property with its gates slightly open. Thinking they could ask for directions, the two wandered into the yard and sat down on the terrace to rest. Moments later, a man appeared, Nathapong, the homeowner, who was startled to see two drunken strangers on his property in the middle of the night. Clearly unnerved, he tried to shoo them away, but his reaction only angered Rakani and Malia. Feeling insulted, Rakani began shouting and cursing at him. In her frustration, she picked up a large rock and hurled it at Nathapong, hitting him on the head and leaving him doubled over in pain. Seizing the moment, Rakani stormed past him and into the house, where she began throwing items on the floor, shattering ceramic decorations and making a mess. Stunned, Nathapong tried to regain his composure and stop her, but Malia, seeing him approach Rakani, grabbed a wine bottle from a nearby cabinet. Without hesitation, she struck him from behind, knocking him unconscious. What started as a harmless night out spiraled into chaos, leaving the women's actions to escalate far beyond what anyone could have imagined. Nathapong lay unconscious on the floor when Rakani suddenly pulled up his shirt and started touching him. Malia stood there, stunned at first, unsure of what was happening. But moments later, she joined in. Together, they undid Nathapong's pants, pulling them down completely. Although he was barely conscious, Nathapong tried to move a few minutes later. However, the women didn't give him a chance. He soon lost consciousness entirely. What happened next was horrifying. Rakani began kissing Nathapong's lips and body with wild abandon, and for reasons she couldn't explain, Malia followed her lead. Then, in an act that defies understanding, the two inserted a broomstick into Nathapong's body as far as it would go. That gruesome act is believed to have caused his death. Afterward, as if nothing had happened, Rakani and Malia fell asleep right there on the floor next to his lifeless body. It wasn't until around 9 a.m. the next morning that the nightmare came to light. Nathapong's wife arrived, bringing him breakfast, only to stumble upon the horrific scene. Her screams drew the attention of nearby residents, who quickly called the authorities. At that moment, Rakani and Malia were still fast asleep, oblivious to the chaos their actions had caused. A bit of background. Nathapong was a newcomer to Chumpon. He'd moved there after the pandemic in search of work to support his wife and 4 children. By day, he worked as a food courier. On weekends, he stayed at a large, mostly empty mansion owned by an American citizen living abroad. There, he worked as both a gardener and caretaker, keeping the property in order. Tragically, it was at this very house that the unthinkable took place. His wife, who often brought him meals, was the one to find his body that morning. In their defense, both Rakani and Malia claimed they had no memory of their actions, blaming alcohol and possibly drugs for their behavior. Malia admitted to remembering fragments of the night, struggling to push away dark thoughts she didn't understand. Rakani, however, said she couldn't recall anything at all. A doctor who examined the women later confirmed that they had likely consumed a substance at the bar that induced hallucinations and reckless behavior. When the police laid out the events of the night, Rakani reportedly broke down in tears, overwhelmed with shock and remorse. Along with Malia, she met with Nathapong's grieving wife to offer a heartfelt apology. On May 12, 2021, the Chumpon High Court handed down its decision. Both Rakani and Malia were found guilty of second-degree assault and misconduct causing death. The court acknowledged the role of alcohol and drugs but ruled out premeditation. Each woman was sentenced to 12 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after serving at least 7 years. Malia attempted to appeal, claiming she had been coerced by Rakani, but her story lacked evidence. The court ultimately deemed both women equally culpable. What began as an ordinary night ended in unimaginable tragedy. For Nathapong's family, the loss was devastating. For Rakani and Malia, it was a stark reminder of the consequences of a single reckless night. What lessons can we learn from this story?